And a good Friday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand by checking out the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app. You can also listen online by visiting the website, nickcraig.com. The show also available on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, all of those other platforms as well. And our show is really only made possible thanks to the great support from our advertisers, including the Law Group here in Wilmington. Visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. We'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on the program this morning. We've got a lot to get into. The big national breaking news is the fact that James Comey, the former director of the FBI, has been indicted by a federal grand jury. We'll get into those details coming up here in just a couple of minutes, but we are going to start off with the tropics, as it seems increasingly likely, and I would say there is a very strong likelihood that southeastern North Carolina will be dealing with the impacts of some tropical weather coming up early next week. We've been tracking this for the last couple of days. Here is the latest from the National Hurricane Center out of Miami, Florida. This area of disturbance that we are watching, Invest 94L, has an 80% chance of development in the next 48 hours, and in all likelihood, that development is going to happen sometime either maybe later tonight or early tomorrow morning is when that development will be expected, and we will see some sort of a tropical system. The storm's name will be Imelda. That is the name. It starts with an I, but it's pronounced, for at least from what I've been able to gather, Imelda will be the name of this storm. So taking a look at what we've got, this is the satellite loop of this system right now. It is not a tropical storm at this point, and you can see some of the convection with this storm really starting to pop off in these areas as it continues to make its way through portions of the southern Atlantic before it will pop out of there and make its trek towards the east coast of the United States coming up over the next couple of days. And this is going to happen very, very quickly. This system is expected to shoot out and immediately start making its way into our area. And this is the latest run, actually running right now, of the global forecast system, the GFS model. And you can see in the image here, you can see this is the system right down here beginning to make its impacts. This is the area that we just showed you on the infrared satellite loop there that will be making its way towards the Carolina coast sometime early next week. This could happen as soon as like Monday. And as we watch this model play out, you can see the development of the storm. And again, this is not an exact forecast, but the models have been very consistent that this will make landfall somewhere between the Georgia-South Carolina line and the North and South Carolina line. You can see this is a pretty strong storm, 987 millibars of the low pressure system there before it just kind of dissipates and hangs around for a couple of days. That's the latest GFS. Seeing some similar things over on the European model as well, with that model showing a similar situation unfolding, a little less developed, but nevertheless, it does develop into what this would be as a strong tropical storm, weak hurricane before the European model. In this case, it shows just kind of lingering off the coast, battering North and South Carolina with wind and rain over the next couple of days. So this is something that is going to be very, very important to watch and keep an eye on over the next couple of days. One of the other things that I've got here, this is the hurricane modeling. And when you see a pattern like this, when you see something as consistent as this right here, and this is, of course, the South Carolina coast that we're looking at, all of these models, for the most part, you've got a couple that are outliers like this, and this would be considered in these two outliers, but everything else, you've got a very clear cone right here of these models that seemingly are understanding how this thing is going to track, how this thing is going to move. So the increasing likelihood, nothing is 100% guaranteed, especially when you're talking about tropical systems, especially one that to this point hasn't developed, but there is strong consistency, strong what is called consensus among the models as we are at this point in time just a couple of days away from a potential landfall sometime late in the day on Monday, early Tuesday morning, at least from some of the modeling that we are keeping an eye on right now. So that is what we are tracking there. Some of the model ensembles, these are looking rather interesting in the in as of late. We'll zoom in a little bit here on southeastern North Carolina. This is the GFS ensemble model showing, and you'll see here a whole bunch of low pressure systems shoot out and make their approach towards the coast. And again, what you're looking for is some level of consistency, and it's hard to argue that this is not consistency right here between Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. These models have a very strong confidence that there will be some sort of low pressure system. The question, how strong will it be, making its way towards the coast? So that is the latest GFS ensemble model that is showing all of these various low pressure systems making their way towards the coast, regardless of, depending on exactly where it landfalls, whether we're talking about an area down here on the Georgia-South Carolina line or closer to the North-South Carolina line here in southeastern North Carolina, very much could have an impact on what our impacts from this storm look like. Those will become more clear potentially later in the day today, but definitely through the day on Saturday and into Sunday once this system actually develops and we've got some more accurate data of where the system is, where the low pressure is, and things of that nature. It will become a little bit more clear. So that's the European ensembles. We'll jump over to that was the GFS ensembles. We'll jump over to the European ensembles, and we're seeing a very similar system there, situation, I should say, there as well. Strong consensus amongst the models that something is going to be in this area. You can see all of these various lines are making it abundantly clear and obvious that we are going to see something in that area as we watch that play through. So that is what we are tracking right now. Impacts, don't know exactly what they are to look like. This is not going to be a major category 4 hurricane or anything like that. Make that point abundantly clear. However, it could be a strong end category storm, maybe a low grade category 1 hurricane, the very, very real possibility of that. So if you have got any prep, anything that you've got to get done over the next couple of days, you've got to get that stuff squared away and set, because there could be some power outages, could be some other issues, heavy rainfall. I was looking at that earlier. I think I accidentally closed out of that, but there was pretty strong thoughts, at least from a couple of the models, that there could be some pretty significant rainfall from this storm, especially I think it was the European model. See if I can pull that up really quick here to show you kind of generally what that was kind of showing in terms of rainfall over the next period of time. And it's just kind of going through here. Yeah, you can see, I'll zoom in on this. You can see some very strong rainfall totals in and around portions of North and South Carolina. So that is going to be something to watch. It's going to happen quick. It'll develop over the weekend, and will be impacting and affecting our area as we head into the day on Monday. Could have some outer rain bands depending on the timing of the storm coming up on Monday, and then through Monday night and into Tuesday morning with likely the worst impacts. And the track of that is going to be very important, especially for our area. If it landfalls closer to the North and South Carolina line, obviously being on the north edge of that storm, our impacts will be more severe. If it impacts and landfalls closer to the South Carolina-Georgia line, pretty much anywhere south of Charleston, those impacts will still be there, but they will be definitely much more muted, as we'll be, a couple 100 miles away from that storm. So that's where we stand right now. Don't think there's any need or reason to panic or run out to the store and buy them out of water bottles and toilet paper and all of that stuff. We're not talking about a long track, devastating tropical event, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on as we head towards the latter parts of September, as the hurricane season does look and does appear to be heating up here towards the end of the season. So that is what we'll keep an eye on. The National Hurricane Center continuing to provide guidance and information on that. I'll be providing details and updates on the Nick Craig Show Facebook page throughout the weekend with some of these model runs, some of the information as we get closer to the event. So if you're not already following or liking the show over there, would highly encourage you to do so. So that is the latest right now. This will become tropical storm, potentially Hurricane Imelda, as we head into the early parts of next week. We'll keep an eye on it right here. All right, turning our attention to some major national news this morning. Former FBI Director old James Comey has been indicted on federal charges. A federal grand jury issued the indictment yesterday, September the 25th, against former FBI Director James Comey, accusing him of making false statements and obstruction in a criminal case. Comey was officially indicted in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia. The U.S. Attorney's Office announced, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the area announced those charges late last night. Grand jurors rejected one of the counts brought against Comey. However, they did agree to move forward with two of the three counts, which is false statements and obstruction in a criminal case. Each charge returned by the grand jury could see a maximum of 5 years in federal prison if Comey is convicted. In a statement, Lindsay Halligan, who is the U.S. attorney for the district, said that the charges, quote, represent a breach of public trust at an extraordinary level, noting, quote, the balance of power relies upon accountability and forthright presentation of facts from executive leadership to congressional oversight. Any intent to avoid, evade, prevent, or obstruct compliance is a violation of professional responsibility and, most importantly, the law. So that is what you've got the attorneys in that case saying. And a lot of this swirls around some congressional testimony that Comey gave back during 2020. And it was, kind of a weird time. You've got some 2017 congressional testimony as well that is at the center of attention, but a lot of it spans around the 2017 testimony and 2020 testimony. Here's just a little bit from 2017. Chuck Grassley speaking to Comey at the time. This is how that went down back in 2017.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Question two on relatively related. Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No.
Has any classified information relating to President Trump or his associates been declassified and shared with the media?
Not to my knowledge.
You testified before the House Intelligence Committee that a lot of classified matters have ended up in the media recently. Without getting into any particular article, I want to emphasize that, without getting into any particular article, is there an investigation of any leaks of classified information relating to Mr. Trump or his associates?
I don't want to answer that question, Senator, for reasons I think you know. There have been a variety of leaks. Well, leaks are always a problem, but especially in the last 3 to 6 months. And where there is a leak of classified information, the FBI, if it's our information, makes a referral to the Department of Justice, or if it's another agency's information, they do the same, and then DOJ authorizes the opening of an investigation. I don't want to confirm in an open setting whether there are any investigations open.
I want to challenge you on that because the government regularly acknowledges when it's investigating classified leaks. You did that in the Valerie Plame case. What's the difference here?
Well, the most important difference is I don't have authorization from the department to confirm any of the investigations they've authorized. And it may be that we can get that at some point, but I'm not going to do it sitting here in an open setting without having talked to them.
So that's James Comey back in 2017, a back and forth there with Senator Chuck Grassley dealing with classified leaks, classified information. And you've got to take yourself back to the first Trump administration and remember what was going on. Remember the incessant amount of information that was being leaked throughout the federal government. You remember in 2016, Trump wasn't supposed to win. You all are aware and remember this situation. Trump wasn't supposed to win. The golden goose in Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the 45th president of the United States. It was her time. The DNC shelved her to give Barack Obama the nomination back in 2008. It was her turn to be president. A lot of folks, including those in the media, did not take Trump seriously all the way through the campaign, literally through election night, until lo and behold, we would find out on that early November evening that the American people said enough was enough. The American people said, we are looking for a change. We are looking for something different in our chief executive. And they overwhelmingly supported and voted for Donald Trump, who would then become the 45th president of the United States. So I set that groundwork because it's important to understand that Trump wasn't supposed to win. And then the immediate reaction from those in the government. The immediate reaction from what was named at the time, the deep state. Individuals that were not happy with what the American public did in November of 2016. Groups of individuals, the bureaucracy that exists throughout federal government that refused and wanted nothing to do with Donald Trump in the Oval Office. So there was an incessant amount of leaks worth of information from all over the government as these individuals were struggling with coming to the realization, coming to grips that they had lost power. Coming to the realization that the guy that they refused to take seriously in Donald Trump was actually becoming and was now the president of the United States. And so it's very important to remember what was going on at the time. It's very important to remember the atmosphere that existed, the immediate attempts to stonewall the Trump administration on everything that was going on. And you just heard in that clip directly from Chuck Grassley, Director Comey. Have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters related to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? Comey's one-word answer, never. Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? Comey, one-word answer, no. So you have, at the time, Director Comey, the head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, stating to Congress that either A, he was never an anonymous source, or B, he had never authorized individuals under him at the FBI to go to outlets like the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, CBS, NBC, all the litany of news networks that you're familiar with, that he himself and he never told somebody to go to a news outlet, leak classified information, and do it as an anonymous source, get anonymity from the publication. We saw a lot of this during the first Trump administration. I mean, every single day, you'd read a news report, read a news story, watch something on television, and you were constantly hearing about these anonymous sources. I mean, it got to the point where you almost didn't believe anything that you read because every day, every other day, there was a new bombshell story, sources close to the matter, anonymous sources speaking to CBS News or the New York Post or the New York Times or the Washington Post, like literally every single day. The federal government was leaking like crazy because they were trying to do everything in their power to stop and to muck up the Trump administration. They could not come to grips. They could not come to the reality that they had lost, that their savior in Hillary Clinton had lost. She wasn't supposed to lose. Trump was a non-serious candidate. Trump had no shot in hell of becoming president. to all of these individuals. And you remember the text messages back and forth between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, talking about how they've got to get their contingency plan in place if Trump wins. The Russia collusion hoax. Now, he didn't actually win. He was helped by somebody in Russia buying $10,000 worth of Facebook advertising, and he colluded with the Russian government to make that happen. The first couple of years, I'd say the first probably 2 years of the Trump administration were pretty brutal. I mean, not only did you have people like Paul Ryan actively working against the president when he was the Speaker of the United States House, but you had seemingly every other federal entity actively working against the president of the United States. Trump at the time had never been in public office before. He surrounded himself with some less than ideal individuals, giving him piss poor advice, in my opinion. And so there was a lot of different moving parts, a lot of dysfunction, and I think now retrospectively looking back, an incredible amount of chaos during the first Trump administration. James Comey, the director of the FBI, I think was behind a lot of that. James Comey, who, just a couple of months ago was in the news for his 8647 post on the beach, seemingly talking about, using the police term or the term 86ing something to have it killed or not available. And then, of course, 47, Trump's the 47th president of the United States, is now being indicted by the DOJ. Got a question coming in on our Rumble live chat this morning. Where will this case be tried? Well, according to the details, this is going to be tried in the Eastern District of Virginia. That's where the indictment came down, the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia. So that is presumably where this case will be tried, unless Comey or somebody else is able to successfully get some sort of movement of the case. But that is in all likelihood where it will be tried. Attorney General Pam Bondi commented on the situation on X, saying, quote, "No one is above the law. Today's indictments reflect this Department of Justice's commitment to holding those who abuse positions of power accountable for misleading the American people. We will follow the facts in this case." We also got similar commentary from FBI Director Kash Patel. He posted on his X account yesterday afternoon, similar situation, quote, "Today, your FBI took another step in its promise of full accountability. For far too long, previous corrupt leadership and their enablers weaponized federal law enforcement, damaging once proud institutions and severely eroding public trust. Every day, we continue to fight to earn the trust back, and under my leadership, this FBI will confront the problem head on. Nowhere was this politicization of law enforcement more blatant than during the Russiagate hoax, a disgraceful chapter in the history we continue to investigate and expose. Everyone, especially those in positions of power, will be held to account, no matter their perch. No one is above the law." Similar commentary coming in from FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, who wrote, quote, "When Director Patel and I took our leadership positions in the FBI, we promised the American people accountability. Promises matter." And so there's a lot of back and forth on this, as you can imagine, those in the media. I'm just glancing over and looking at that this morning. The media is, of course, calling this politicization of justice, which is, of course, the most ironic thing in the world. I don't want to hear from anybody in media. I don't want to hear from anybody on the left side of the political aisle about politicization of government. I don't want to hear from anybody on the left about weaponization of government. James Comey, according to the federal indictment, lied to Congress. That is a crime. You'll remember people like Steve Bannon, people like Roger Stone and Peter Navarro. These individuals served time in prison for lying to Congress. These individuals had their lives ruined for lying to Congress. And so if lying to Congress is that big of a deal, then if James Comey did in fact do that, and that will obviously come out as this case is tried, as this goes through the legal process, then he needs to be held to account. He absolutely needs to be held accountable. And so for those that say this is the weaponization of the federal government, my question to you is very simple. Were any statutes changed to bring these charges against James Comey? Did you have to twist or bend the law for this indictment to go forward? From all indications, from reading the very short 2-page indictment, the answer to that question is no. Right, when we talk about weaponization of justice, I use the Trump indictments in New York City as the example, where they literally changed the statute of limitation so that they could go after, at the time, the former president of the United States. You want to talk about holding people to account? I agree. I don't care if they're Democrats, liberals, Republicans, or conservatives. You want to hold people accountable? I'm all for it. But if you have to change the statute of limitation, if you have to bend the law to go after somebody, that is where, to me, the line is drawn. If you have to change statutes, if you have to start reading between the lines to charge somebody with a crime, that is a problem. And that is what you have seen out of New York with Letitia James. That's what you've seen in states like Georgia. And that's what you've seen out of the previous Department of Justice. Changing the statute of limitation, bending the words that exist in the law so that they can go after their political opponents. This is a pretty cut and dry indictment, folks. The accusation is that James Comey, speaking to Chuck Grassley in 2017, said, no, I've never been an anonymous source. And no, I never instructed somebody to be an anonymous source within the FBI. That's pretty simple. And so if he didn't do that, then we don't have a problem. I still think James Comey is a scumbag. I still think he's a disgrace to the FBI. I think he's absolutely destroyed the reputation of that entity. But he doesn't need to be thrown in jail for that. Just because he's a scumbag doesn't mean he deserves. Unlike those on the left, people I disagree with, I don't think that the solution for them is to be thrown in jail. I don't think that's a beneficial thing to go forward with. Just because I disagree with somebody politically doesn't mean I believe their life needs to be ruined. James Comey, everybody is fully aware, is a complete and total low-life scumbag. I'm not going to argue that. I don't think many of you would argue that. So if he lied to Congress, then he needs to be held to account. There are laws on the books about lying to Congress. So James Comey deserves to be held as responsible and liable as Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, and everybody else that the DOJ has charged over the last couple of years. Comey released a very weird video in response to this on social media yesterday. It's about 50 seconds long. This is the former FBI director responding to the announcement that these indictments are coming out.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial.
All right, let's have a trial. What a weird message from Comey. My family's always known that there is a price to standing up to Donald Trump. My family's always known you've got to vote. Again, he's just a complete jackass. I mean, there's just really no other way around it. So he says he's innocent. That's fine. We live in a society of innocent until proven guilty. I have no problem with his statements. If he is truly innocent, then I hope that the federal judicial system, as he noted, proves that point. I don't want individuals that are not guilty of things being locked up. I don't want people being charged and arrested and thrown in prison for things that they didn't do. I'm not in favor of that at all. Even if I disagree with them, like James Comey, I'm not in favor of that. Not a fan of that. But I am curious in his commentary about standing up to Donald Trump. When you're the director of the FBI and you are leaking allegedly leaking classified information to the media, to me, that's not standing up to Donald Trump. That is a dereliction of duty as one of the chief law enforcement people in the country. I mean, he can claim he's innocent all he wants, and again, the court system will play this out, and we'll figure out what the deal is. But I'm curious in his standing up to Donald Trump. It's just interesting. It makes sense. James Comey is a political activist. He is a political operative. But I don't understand how leaking classified information to the media is standing up, and I'll throw that in air quotes, to Donald Trump. It's no, James. It's not. It's breaking the law. And you, as the FBI director, should know better than to do that. But let's be perfectly clear and honest. His hatred for Donald Trump, his hatred for Republicans and conservatives likely clouded his judgment. And just like you see, and just like unfortunately we've seen in the last couple of weeks with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, earlier this week, an individual being killed inside of an ICE facility by a deranged left-wing lunatic. These individuals, including James Comey, feel that they will do anything and should do anything to stop Trump, regardless of whether it's legal or not, regardless of whether it's moral or not. The hatred for President Trump and everything that he stands for outweighs everything else. And you just heard the same garbage from Comey that you hear from everything else. Oh, we got to stand up to tyrants. Yeah. When I see Donald Trump inviting young Marines into the Oval Office, shaking each and every one of their hands and giving them a U.S. government challenge coin, that's the first thing that jumps into my mind, right? Tyrant. That's exactly what the definition is, right? A tyrant. So here are the charges. The indictment returned by a grand jury on Thursday includes charges of making false statements and obstruction of official proceeding. The first charge, a violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001, is related to false statements to government actors. It permits penalties for individuals who, quote, make any materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statements or representation, end quote, in a matter under the jurisdiction of any of the three branches of the federal government. In this case, the charge relates to the legislative branch. The obstruction charge allows federal penalties, including fines or up to 5 years in prison for knowingly misrepresenting, withholding, or otherwise preventing disclosure of information in a civil or House investigation. So you've got those comments from 2017, and then you've got some additional comments from 2020 in which James Comey was once again testifying in front of Congress during COVID, which was a weird time because he's testifying remotely during that period of time. But he's testifying in front of Capitol Hill back in 2020, and this is how that played out. This is Senator Ted Cruz, September the 30th, almost 5 years ago to the date, 2020, when they were investigating Comey about, I think this was the Russia collusion situation.
Lastly, asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave. I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
So there's Comey backing it up in 2020. He made the original claims to Chuck Grassley back in 2017, was challenged on it once again in 2020, and same thing. I stand by my statements. I stand by my commentary. I stand by this. I stand by that. So regardless of whether he or he directed somebody like Andrew McCabe, who's the other party in this, to release information to in this case, the Wall Street Journal, that's what is under the microscope with this federal indictment. The indictment filed by the Department of Justice cites Comey's claim to the panel that he had not authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning an unnamed individual, which is described as Person 1. Several individuals mentioned in the documents are only named by number. The document alleges, quote, that statement was false because as Comey then and there knew, he had in fact authorized another person to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning Person 1. The second count in the indictment alleges that Comey corruptively influenced, obstructed, or impeded the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an investigation was being had before the Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee. According to the indictment, according to documents filed in the case, grand jurors rejected another count, which was also based on 18 U.S.C. 1001. The count alleged that Comey, quote, falsely stated to a U.S. senator during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he did not remember being taught of this person's approval in talking about releasing some of that information. So the third charge in this case, the grand jury came back and said, no, not enough in that to move forward. But in these other cases, the first two indictments, we've got enough information to move forward with it. So that is where we stand this morning. The news just coming in the last little bit is that Comey is set to turn himself in today. His arraignment is set for 10 o'clock on October the 9th in an Alexandria courtroom before a district court judge. So that'll be coming up October the 9th. So that was 2 weeks from yesterday that will be happening. That's a Thursday, but he is going to turn himself in today, and that arraignment will be coming up here in just a couple of weeks. So, there's obviously a lot of issues with James Comey. There's obviously a lot of issues with the way in which he led, the way that he handled the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Let me set some groundwork and set some expectations on this. Is James Comey going to prison? In all likelihood, if I'm just being perfectly blunt and honest with you, no, he's not. If he is convicted, and that's a strong if, the likelihood of him serving jail time is incredibly low. So, with that being said, should Department of Justice, Pam Bondi as the AG, should the Department of Justice go forth with this case? The answer to that, from my vantage point, is unequivocally yes. And I think that's more important to me than James Comey going to jail. James Comey is irrelevant at this point. Whether he goes to prison or not really has absolutely no impact on anything that goes on. His life has been minimized to the point where he posts videos on his Instagram walking on the beach with seashells. That's literally what his life has been minimized to. The important thing in this for me is that we are seeing individuals held to account. We are going to watch play out in front of everybody the former director of the FBI being charged or being alleged in this case to have been making false statements to the federal government, to members of Congress, Chuck Grassley, Ted Cruz, and others, over the Russia collusion, fake Russia story hoax. That, to me, is the important part. Could James Comey, if he is convicted, serve some jail time? Oh, absolutely. There's a possibility of it. But don't think that Comey is going to go through this legal proceeding. If he is found guilty, he's going to be charged. They're going to lock him away forever and throw away the key. That is not going to happen. I can promise you that. And I'm seeing a comment in our chat. It's just going to be a slap on the wrist. I hear that. I get what you're saying. But I don't know that I'd classify it as a slap on the wrist. The maximum penalty, which you don't typically go after somebody, and typically when sentencing rolls around, you're not going to go for maximum penalty with somebody on a first offense. I don't remember, and I don't know off the top of my head, James Comey's background in terms of his run-ins with law enforcement and the judicial system, but I don't believe he has a lengthy criminal record. I'm not sure he has a criminal record at all. And so the likelihood of somebody on a first offense getting time in prison is low. Now, we did see that with people like Steve Bannon. We did see that with people like Peter Navarro. I'll contend that point to you. I will absolutely concede that point. But the fact that we are now seeing individuals on the political left not being unfairly prosecuted, not being unfairly persecuted by the federal government, but them being held to account for the things that they did when they were in leadership positions is a great thing to see. Now, innocent until proven guilty. We will watch this play out, as everybody will. This is a big step. If I'm being perfectly blunt and honest with you, this is something that Republicans have never had the balls to do in the past. They have never had the courage not to weaponize the federal government. They have never had the courage to hold Democrats accountable for the things that they do. Never. We've never seen this before. Democrats use the Department of Justice to throw people like Steve Bannon, who's a freaking radio show host, and Peter Navarro in prison. And we have to just sit back and take it. That's not the case anymore. With people like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi in the room, we are seeing individuals truly being held to account for the things that they did. And that's not insignificant. If Comey is guilty of these charges, and if it is proven in a court of law, I do hope he serves some time in prison. I do. Not because this is retribution, but the standard has been set. James Comey is not above the law. He thinks he's above the law. The smart-ass nature of everything that he does. He believes that he's above the law and everything that he does is justified because he hates Donald Trump, but he's not. And we're seeing that right now. As we head into early next week, you're going to be hearing a lot of discussions about a federal government shutdown. You've probably already seen some of the commentary on social media about it. For the longest time, every time the federal government shuts down, who is responsible for it? It's always the Republicans. It's always the GOP that has to bear the weight of a government shutdown. President Donald Trump has made it abundantly clear over the last couple of days that that's not the case. I mean, here's a quick clip, and I'm not moving away from the Comey thing, but you are seeing a difference in the way in which Republicans are dealing with things that we haven't seen before. Here's Trump in the Oval Office yesterday when asked by a reporter about a looming government shutdown next week.
Well, this is all caused by the Democrats. They asked us to do something that's totally unreasonable. They never change. They want to give money away to illegals, illegally. People that entered our country illegally. They want to give them massive federal money. And we don't want to do that because it means everyone's going to just keep pouring back. Right now we have absolutely perfect borders like you haven't seen in many years, even better than I had great borders during my 4 years, but these borders are stone cold closed. You can only come into our country legally now, but the Democrats want to give it all away. They want to open up the borders. Take a look at that. It's a big thing. They want to open borders again after what we're going through now, getting rid of prisoners, getting rid of all of these people dropped out from mental institutions, drug dealers, drug addicts, everything. They're putting everybody into our country. It's all ended now. But this is what Schumer wants. This is what the Democrats want. They want to and they want to take our money. We're doing well. Because of tariffs, we're doing unbelievable. We're making more money than we ever.
That's President Donald Trump in the Oval Office. I'm not giving in to the Democrats. And this is something that we have just not seen in the past. Republicans just always cave. Oh, well, we're going to get blamed if there's a government shutdown. So we'll just cave. We'll bend. We'll give the Democrats whatever they want so that we can get nice, flashy headlines from the media. We are seeing a monumental shift. And what I would say is probably the courage of individuals in government to operate. And so to me, that is my big takeaway from this Comey indictment. In the past, again, under the presumption of innocence, but charges being levied nevertheless, in the past, you would never see a Republican attorney general be willing to do this because, it's not going to be helpful for us and we're going to get bad headlines from the media and, we don't want to be told that we're doing this or doing that. Trump says to hell with this. We're in power. We're in charge. If somebody breaks the law, whether it's James Comey or somebody else, they need to be held responsible. This is not a complicated matter. And so to me, that is the major shift that we are seeing now that didn't exist in the first Trump. I mean, it did to some extent in the first Trump administration, but that thing was such a cluster F and a half. It's kind of hard to follow exactly what was going on. But this is the big shift that we're seeing. So is Comey going to prison? Probably not. Could he? Absolutely. This is a big step. And this is not about weaponizing the federal government. This is not about changing the statute of limitation. This is not about changing the way in which things are done to go after your political opponents. Folks, this is the A word. This is accountability. And again, James Comey released a video on Instagram, says he's innocent. Okay, great. Then we watch this play out. And if he's innocent, then he's innocent. Then no harm, no foul. He's still a scumbag. He still will do anything in his power, and did, I would argue, do anything in his power to weaponize the federal government against the president of the United States that he didn't agree with. The president of the United States that you voted for that he didn't like. He's still a deadbeat. He's still a low-life scumbag. But if he's innocent, he's innocent. And if he's guilty, well then the full ramifications of a conviction need to play out. He needs to get the Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro treatment in terms of sentencing, because that's our system of government. So again, Comey is turning himself in today. There will be an arraignment coming up here in just a couple of weeks. This will be a major political story, and it's something that I look forward to following. So we'll keep an eye on the details right here on the Nick Craig Show. I do want to let you know that when legal challenges arise throughout southeastern North Carolina, there's only one group to trust. That's the law group, Melissa Godin, the great team over at the law group here in Wilmington. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across the eastern half of our state. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating real estate transactions, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense, the law group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved as quickly as possible. Great news, folks. They're located in downtown Wilmington, and they're just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or they've got a great website where you can read about all of their attorneys. You can view all of the areas of practice in which they support. All of that available at lawgroupnc.com. Give them a call, 910-251-6088 or lawgroupnc.com. The Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate the law group and their continued support here of the Nick Craig Show. One more time, just taking a look at the Tropics new posting from the National Hurricane Center, just posting this on their X account as for the 8 a.m. advisory. Showers and thunderstorms continue to show signs of organization in association with a tropical wave, that's Invest 94L, located near Hispaniola and eastern Cuba. This low is expected to become a tropical depression near the central and northwest Bahamas over the weekend. Heavy rains are likely to spread across the Bahamas and eastern Cuba during the next day or two. While there remains considerable uncertainty in the long-range track and intensity of the system, there is a significant risk of wind, rainfall, and storm surge impacts for portions of the southeast United States early next week. So that is what we were talking about earlier in the show this morning, and that is what remains as of right now for this tropical Invest 94L. Stay up with that on the Nick Craig Show Facebook page. I'll be throwing updates on there all throughout the weekend. You can, again, like the show there over on Facebook, and if need be, maybe Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, if there's some more consistency, I'm sure we'll get some if this pans out the way that it looks, some information in terms of tropical storm watches or warnings, things of that nature. Might do a quick video for Facebook and our YouTube channel and Rumble and all of that. So stay plugged in over the weekend. Like many of you may like to maybe disconnect from the news and just kind of break away for a couple of days. Most of the time that's good. However, I'll argue this weekend, definitely want to keep an eye on what's going on as this storm is going to approach very, very quickly. It'll be here Monday afternoon, Monday night before you know it. So that is what we are tracking. We'll keep you up to date right here. Thanks to everybody who joined us live this morning, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. And, of course, available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be keeping an eye on the tropics throughout the weekend and have the latest coming up for you next week right here on The Nick Craig Show. Have a great weekend.